Evolution S355 MCS, which is a 14-inch metal cutting mitre saw. This saw is an absolute beast. It is absolutely superb at cutting mild steel. You can also change the blade and you can cut aluminium or stainless steel with it should you need to do so. Obviously this is a very high-end machine and it's not aimed at DIYers, this is for professional metal workers, etc. I have used this extensively on site and it has been absolutely superb. The beauty of this is that you can actually cut mitres on it without actually adjusting the base like you need to do with a normal chop saw. So I'm going to bring you in a bit closer. We'll take a look at some of the features and then I'll show you some of the things that I have cut on site using this saw. This weighs in at 35 kilograms roughly, so it is quite a heavy saw, but it's heavy for a reason. It is very well built. To buy one of these you're looking at about 750–800 quid. This saw comes with 3 clamps. You have the one at the back there which can be switched from that side to this side if needed, and you've then got these 2 at the front which you can simply position anywhere you want. These clamps are very well designed. You have a quick release lever on them so you can easily pull them in and push them out to wherever you want them, drop that down and then do the final tightening with the knob. It actually comes with 3 V-blocks like that. They are useful if you're clamping box section or round profile, etc. Take a look at the clamp there. It does actually have a knurled finish on it, so that will grip any flat objects perfectly. But to be honest, I do tend to keep them on most of the time. You will also notice that there's some spring-loaded ball bearings in there, and they will actually hold the V-block in position. This clamp crossbar and the 2 clamps at the front are absolutely superb because it does mean that you can grip some items that you would struggle with normally if we were just relying on that clamp. You can actually adjust the height of this depending on what material you are cutting. So if you're cutting something that kind of diameter, you may want the clamp low down like so. You can put that in there and tighten that up. That will grip that firmly. If you're cutting something a bit larger, you may want this a bit higher up. So underneath there are 2 thumb turn screws that you can turn. So you can simply undo those. You can then lift the whole bar up to the correct height and then you can tighten the thumb screws back up. You can then get that in the exact correct position, flip that down, tighten the knob and tighten that up. Of course, if you wanted to, you could use both clamps on the same side to make sure that that is going to go absolutely nowhere. So that is absolutely solid. So that is a really, really good feature and it makes the saw so much easier to use. And it makes clamping some difficult items very easy. And of course, if you wanted to, you can remove that completely. I've just removed the clamp crossbar so that you can see the mitre function on this saw. You have a knob there that you can undo. Obviously that locks it. You then have that button that you can press. You can then mitre the saw in 46 degrees in either direction. Once it's in direction, you can then lock it. It does have indents as well at popular angles. So by using that pointer there, you can adjust this to any angle you want. And then you can lock it using the knob at the front there. So it's physically gone into the indent there and it's locked in now at 0 degrees, which of course will give you a 90-degree cut. So the base of this is aluminium, and on the back there that is actually a knurled finish, which does help grip material better when you're cutting it. At the back we have this clamp, which is also a quick release clamp, so you can adjust the height there with the thumb screw, and then you can press in that button and you can quickly move the clamp head up and down. So it is very well designed. You can put your material in position, tighten up the screw, and then simply tighten up the clamp, and that will clamp the material down firmly. In conjunction with that, you could use the clamp crossbar and the two front clamps as well, depending on what material you are clamping down. I must admit, most of the time I simply use this clamp because that is sufficient for holding the material. To release it, you simply undo that, and then you can quick release it out of the way should you need to do so. This is the back view of it. You can simply turn that thumb screw and swap the clamp over to either side of the saw, depending on what you are cutting. As with a lot of mitre saws, we have the hold down pin there that will hold the cutting head of the saw in the down position. That is useful for when you are transporting it. The handle has a safety feature in that you have to slide that part across there with your thumb before you can switch the saw on and pull down the head. There's also a slide rail on this saw which gives you 3 different cutting positions depending on what material you are cutting. So obviously if you're cutting a bigger piece of material, you need the blade further forwards. So you simply undo that lever, pull the pin out, and then you can slide it and it will actually lock in position, and then you can lock the lever back again. So that's the middle position. We'll now pull the pin out, and now it's in the front position. And we can simply lock that with that lever. What you should never do with this is try to use it as a sliding mitre saw, because it's not designed for that purpose. This is simply to position the blade to give you the best cutting position. On the back there we also have storage for the hex key, which can be used to change the blade, etc. I've taken this saw onto site several times for pipe installation jobs and handrail installation jobs. Here I'm cutting a piece of 2-inch shed 80 steel pipe. So this machine is 2200 watts. It's a very powerful and very capable saw. You can see the flanges just there behind the saw. This was for replacing a 2-inch Towns water pipe that was badly corroded. It's got a bit of green paint left on it, but this pipe did not have long left before it rusted away completely. Here is the new pipe, painted in the correct colour, this time according to that site's pipe colour standard. Whilst we were there, we also replaced these 2 cooling water pipes and also this steam blowdown pipe. Whilst I've got this in the welding bay, I'll also cut this piece of 2-inch box section. Then you can see how well it cuts mitres. I've reduced the volume of the saw during use for your viewing pleasure. I have to admit that on this particular site they do have a metal cutting bandsaw that I can use, but the last time I went to use it the blade had hardly any teeth, and cutting a piece of 2-inch steel pipe took over 10 minutes. They also never had a spare blade for it, so it's much easier to just pop this in the back of the van, even though it weighs in at about 35 kilograms. I've just found this old scrap mild steel shaft in the scrap skip, so I'm cutting that in half. If I remember rightly, the shaft is approximately 40mm mild steel. As you can see, it cuts it with ease and is cold to the touch afterwards. Here we have a piece of 115mm outside diameter or a 5-inch steel pipe which has a 6mm wall thickness. You can see that if the blade is set to the back position, the blade will not cut all the way through the pipe. Basically, I'm trying to get the centre of the blade positioned over the centre of the pipe. I'm now at another site and have the mitre saw on my rigid workbench. Here I'm cutting 48.3mm galvanised steel tube for a handrail that will run along a mezzanine floor and down the stairs. I also built the office, but I didn't film any of that as I did not have time. As you can see, this saw makes really light work of cutting the tube. So that's the S355 MCS 14-inch metal cutting mitre saw.